Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to another Supercoach Insider podcast. My name is Swiz, here on a Wednesday morning, leading into round 4, which is the annual gather round in Adelaide. Seems like the entire AFL community is heading there, except for me, who's heading up to Brisbane for Benny Boy's wedding, so it should be pretty exciting nonetheless. And it was great to watch some footy over the weekend, and really looking forward to seeing what gather round delivers. For me, from a Supercoach point of view, pretty happy. Ignore the tipping, ignore the draft because that wasn't so good. But 1986, so that was 4,520 for the week, and more importantly, moved up 23,000 spots up to 11,385. Don't be too discouraged with your rankings at the moment if it is a little bit further back, because it is so close at the top. Probably one of the big things at the moment is that balance between points and team value. Mine is heading up towards 11 million, and you probably will be wanting close to 11 million by the end of round 4, because that will come in handy as the season goes on. But before I get into any more, as always, check us out on all our social media platforms, in particular the YouTube, Spotify. Get in contact with us via Twitter, Supercoach Insider 100, Swiz 26. All right, so as I said, 1986, and I'll go through my team and what I'm thinking in a moment and try to answer a few of your dilemmas as well. Shout out to Saeed, who's now leading overall. So I had a bit of a chat to him via DM. So hopefully, it's a long road to keep ahead, but some of the mid prices that he's jumped on, I know he was talking about, he went from Hogan to Harry Mackay, which has worked out very well for him so far. Harry with that 137, and that was the original plan that I was talking about, starting with Hogs and then getting that and then jumping Mackay, and he did it. So congratulations. Also in his teams, those mid prices, still Matt Crouch is really, well, say mid prices, but I guess undervalued premiums in a sense, and he's got Luke Ryan too, who's been absolutely flying. So apart from that, the rest of the team is pretty similar to mine. But yeah, just those little differences, and that can be the big difference from being where I'm ranked at the moment and where he's ranked. So he's got out a little bit of a healthy lead at the moment, but there's a lot of footy to happen. All right, in regards to me this week, so I had Zach Williams on the Pine as an emergency, just in case something horribly went wrong there, and then I could have probably brought somebody else into my best 22, but in the end he scored a 70, so I didn't need to stress too much about that. Because it was 22, so I out-drowed Howes, Hoare. I didn't need to worry about Wilson. I think Reed was the other one that dropped out of my scores this week, so not too many issues there. This week got to be mindful that it is best 22 back to normality before we go back to those bye rounds for the next 2 weeks. So there is quite a lot of bye rounds at the moment, but this is not one of them. One of the other great things, I had Heaney as captain. I went Bont VC. I was sort of debating still between Sarong and Bont. I had a few mates jump on Max Gorn, so congratulations there. He was probably 5th on my list, but I was pretty keen, just in case Bont did play midfield. In the end, he played forward for a lot of the game. Did kick goals. I was hoping in a way he was the one to get subbed, but unfortunately it was Libba, so that was really disappointing. Libba still getting 98 in about 2.5 quarters, but that could have easily been a 130, 140 game and would have propelled the ranking even more. Did bank cash last week, so I could go Fife up if I want to. There is a little bit of debate, a little bit of thought in my head now. Do I maybe try to hold on to Fife, and is it Harley Reid that gets moved on? One of the other issues we've got now is Marty Hoare is out injured as well, so that's very frustrating. So I'm going to have to reconsider what I do here in regards to the defender. So I fix my team up how it probably should be. So Gipkus is still there. I've been trying not to bring in a defender. Again, it's best 18 next 2 weeks. And then I'm going to have players like, if I hold Sexton, Roberts, Buku Kamas can all go down there. So one of probably the biggest questions a lot of people have got this week is, do I look at either Draper from Fremantle or Tom Brown? So I'll have a look at them and the projections. We'll have a quick chat about that. But I'll just make a couple changes here with my side just so it looks a little bit better. in regards to what we can do. So I'll go through each line, have a little chat about what I could potentially do, but more importantly for you guys, what you guys could be doing, looking at some of your questions. So let's just start with the defence, because people either have Gipkus, Reid, the Melbourne boys, or Caulfield, and because there's quite a few injuries at the moment, so I'd probably keep Hoare. Reid is potentially back in a couple of weeks, so I'm happy to ride him through the buys and then just see what happens, because if he's back, it's like there's no real use of trading him, so it's really only Gipkus. So it just depends if I want to move another premium just to cover that. So that is something that I could potentially do. But if we have a look here, and we'll have a look at some of the better options for Gipkus that you might be wanting to trade in. From a premium point of view, geez, Nick Floston's on fire at the moment from the Tigers. He's got a bye coming up, so it's probably hard to go there. But let's just go for the cash cows at the moment, and then we'll talk about some of the premium. So best cash cows, the ones that everyone's kind of looking at is like Tom Brown or Draper. And both have their issues with job security. Freo do have a couple of players potentially coming back. The hard thing is, it's kind of when do these guys come back? And the fact is, we kind of only need really this week to cover from points. You want to play a little bit longer, but Heath Chapman is currently a test. So if Chapman was to come back, I feel like he'll play Waffle this week. But if he comes back in the next week or two, does that then make a reshuffle, which could potentially see Draper out? Obviously, Sean Darcy's going to be back soon. That's not going to affect Draper too much, unless they're going to do some major change by moving Jackson forward and then they move someone defence. They've also got there was one other one that we'll talk. Oh, the Warmer from who was looking really good until he had that concussion. So potentially, does he come back in, and does that move things? I know Draper's obviously a tall, but they do have the potential where Hayden Young did play midfield this week. They can always move him around. So I feel like a lot of it bases on what they do with Sean Darcy. Because if Darcy comes back and plays ruck, Jackson goes forward, then is it just a tool that gets squeezed out from the forward line and they keep everything back? Do they try to reshuffle? Do they even look at maybe Jackson playing him going back for a little while if it's just a short-term fix? Why they try to work out what's going on. Nathan O'Driscoll's another test this week too. So they've got a few guys that aren't necessarily great tools, but can fit into like half-back roles. And then, if they do reshuffling around. So it does have me a little worried about what they may do for Draper going on, but from a break-even point of view, minus 32 could definitely, if he plays a few weeks, makes that 100k. I don't see any sort of dramas with that. If I kind of have a look at what Supercoach got projected now, a lot of the time these projections are quite low, so 34. He went 68 on the weekend. If he kind of repeated, let's just add another 20 on there. I think 54 is a fair score. So he goes up 40k this week, potentially maybe 30k the week after. So there's 70k there, and might start to flatten out there. May probably get close to that 100k. Is that probably enough to trade in? Obviously, he's a lot cheaper than the Tom Brown option. Tom Brown minus 35. At least with Tom Brown, some of Richmond's injuries are a bit more long-term. Looks like they'll have to bring in Ryan, maybe Naismith. I probably think that's a little bit less likely, but definitely Samson, Ryan, and Cozzy to come in and replace Lynch and Bolter. The fact that Bolter's out for 5 weeks means it's not like they can put him back. Probably the bigger one is, if you Broad, Grimes, having all those guys back in there, who's the one maybe gets pushed out? Is there a chance Brown? I feel like Brown may have been in that team anyway, just because Gipkus is obviously out long term. So there is still potential that Richmond could move the magnets around. The other problem with Brown is he does have the bye coming up soon, so you're going to have a couple weeks with him, and then, again, it's best 18, but it's just frustrating because you kind of want some consistency there. At least he's scoring 60s. The problem with him is he's at that elevated price, so yeah, they've got him projected going 66, 66. I'd say let's just be a bit more modest there and say 60, 60. So he probably again makes 40k this week, 30k potentially after the game, for the Melbourne game if he was to go 60 again. So again, it's probably 100k. So it's maybe a much of a muchness. And I think for both, we need to see what sides, who's getting named in both sides this week, because if there is what I'd want to see is nearly both teams as sort of full strength in that area as possible, like taking out, your long-term injuries, but those other players who are kind of like, I don't want to see like a Grimes, for example, a test and missing and then thinking, oh, well, Brown might be the one that gets moved out the following week. So there's nothing worse than sort of that. So I kind of want to make sure like Grimes, Broad, all of those guys are named. And then if Brown is also named along them, beside them, if I can spit that out, it makes it a little bit more confident there. Probably the only other move, because I don't feel like there's any other. I see some people considering Mark Keane, and yeah, he's had a great start to this season. They've got a projected score of 17, good break even. The hard thing is there, it's 289, so it's such an elevated price. The first week it was just a 66. Yes, he had a great game against Fremantle. I don't see that continue. It's not like he's going to keep smashing out 120s. So they've got him projected at 70. If we're a little more conservative and say it's like that 66 again, he's probably again has that spike this week, probably gets his 35 to 40k. But after that, if he's not sort of keeping up a 70 average, he's going to peter out very quickly, and then you're going to be stuck with somebody who's probably going to be maybe 350. Now maybe that's enough to but I feel like if you're just going to pay the 70. If you want a guy who's going to be averaging sort of 60, 70 as it is, you're probably better just going the cheaper option than trying to find the cash to get up to like a Mark Keane. I feel like the more realistic move might be if you are moving out one of your, well, if you've got cash like me and where that cash was looking at sort of Flanders coming in, or if you're looking at trading out a premium or a semi-premium, maybe like a Wines who's injured, maybe you've had enough of Dawson in the midfield. Is there a way that you bring one of them down to a rookie in another part of the ground, and we actually look at one of the sort of the premiums in the defence? So the obvious ones, so we've got Vlosten there, but let's actually talk about through average. So Luke Ryan, we know, averaging 140. I don't know if he can keep this up. He's had a pretty good draw. Like Adelaide aren't really offering him much. I did talk about that last week, how they just bombed at the Stewart. Ryan had a field day down there. Now, he did have an awesome game last year, Ryan, against Carlton. But is that going to repeat? Like, yeah, he's had the 165, 127, 130. North Melbourne and Adelaide not really offering up a much, and at the moment neither of the Lions, so it's been a pretty cruisy draw. He does have a couple of really good games in there, but yeah, Carlton and Port Adelaide going to be two tougher opposition, so it'd be interesting to see how they sort of go up against them. Yeah, like especially the tall towers at Carlton. I think that just sort of changes things a little bit, so I'm probably not expecting Ryan this week to go 130. If he does, fantastic if you're an owner, but he's still, if you've got him in, he's flying. Some people are looking at McGovern. Just the injury history sort of worries me. If you don't have Sheasel, that's an easy one. A couple of the other ones being thrown up is, and probably the bigger debate from this week is Whitfield and Jordan Clark. Clark looks great running off that half back line. They got him over from Geelong. He was a high pick. Been in that system now for a couple of years at Fremantle, so yeah, like you could go a lot worse than him. Maybe he's the one, I feel like it's a bit like Nasiah, Wanganeen Malira, and yeah, are they going to stay up there enough to sort of challenge these top guys? Well, kind of the form like the guys like Sicily and even a couple of those other premiums, Sinclair and that are in at the moment. Maybe a couple of these cheap options can actually get close enough to matching them, or even continue to have a burst. If you were on them right now and they had another couple of really good weeks, maybe they get far enough ahead that by the time the others start closing in on them, the averages probably kind of even out. So it's not a bad move. Lockie Whitfield, one of the ultimate burn man like Heaney, but we've seen like Isaac's rewarding the faith this year. Can Whitfield do that? He looked really good in his opening couple of games. The problem was, look at that draw, North Melbourne and West Coast. So it's sort of hard again to jump on because the fixture is getting a lot harder. He's probably not going to get the same movement. Saints, Carlton, Brisbane, Sydney, all in a row there. So if those two oppositions were Carlton and Port Adelaide and he had gone 118 and 124, I'd probably be more likely to jump on Whitfield. The one that I do like and have liked from day one, and I know he's a little bit more expensive, but that is Houston. It's not much not to like there. His break even is high at 123, so potentially we could get him closer to 550. They do have a projected score of 132. He has towed up Essendon in the past. The problem is that he's never really done well against Fremantle, which the following week is, so that is something to bit of food for thought. But the guy started off with 300s in a row. He's been pretty solid. The role hasn't changed. Would I be confident enough starting bringing in Houston, and the fact that even if he dropped 550, it's like kind of big deal. Like I'm paying for points, so there is a thought of maybe moving. If you've got like a Wines or a Dawson, even Libba is probably a little bit of my thinking. I don't know if I want to move Libba because I feel like he's gonna they subbed him to sit himself for the next couple of weeks. But just to kind of fix the defence in regards to premiums, it's not a bad idea either. So it does come down to how much cash you have, and maybe you're just sick of this whole rookie roulette happening, and you'd rather a more of a established player down there. Outside of those guys, I'm probably not scrolling too much further. One question some people have had is regarding Nick Dacos. I know a few jumped off last week. He had a massive last quarter, which got him to 112. Up to then, I was probably had the trade button ready to go. The problem is you're going to want him anyway. He is projected to drop 37k. I think the interesting thing is, it's Hawthorn. Do they tag him this week? He's got a massive break even of 178, so he's going to drop 30 to 40k if he was the projected score, just 97. If he obviously scores like a 120, 130, the drop isn't going to be that bad, and then all of a sudden he's break even the following week. A lot of the times for these premium guys, do I really want to waste trading them in just to trade them back? Trade them out just to trade them back in. I feel like if it was a couple of weeks ago, maybe if his break even was higher and at 650, and I knew he was going to drop like 150k, maybe I would have considered it then. If I knew like that 54, like the 54 was there. Even if it maybe was lower, if it was the 54 leading to Hawthorn, and they were actually saying they were going to tag him, maybe I would have been more keen on that. But again, even when he'd already dropped to 620, I'm like, well, what's the worst case? He drops to 550, like big deal. It's 70k. I'll make 70k up. It's somewhere else in my team. I'd rather try to bring rookies in to make that money than waste trading sidewaysing these guys. And nothing worse there, like he did last week, has a 50-point last quarter. If he comes out and smashes it again, you're just going to be so far behind the competition. So I'm probably not that big on trading, reverse trading him. Just trading him out. Right, so that's probably the backline dilemma covered. So for me at the moment, I'm just going to wait and see what those teams are named. I do need to bring someone in. I'm more likely, because I'm still probably on Flanders, I could potentially move some guys around, bring in a rookie in the forward line, and then put one of these guys up. I've got the potential to do that, but I feel like it's, maybe I just go with Brown or one of these other rookies that have been named and have a look at that. And sort of go from there. The only issue is, Howes and Hoare, and it's getting a bit sad down there. But I do know I only need to get through this week, and then after the buys, we get to move some of these guys back, and I feel a lot more comfortable. Seeing guys like Robertson there for a while, or if it's Buku Karmas or something like that. So if you don't have the dual position guys, it does make it a little bit harder. All right, in regards to midfield, pretty stock standard. Most people should be trying to aim to have your Bont, Sarong, Green, Butters. Even though Butters, it was a little bit of a down game, that is going to happen. Like players, we've said this, they don't go 100 every week. It's just the ton run does not happen. Bont got pretty close last year. I think he had 3 scores, which weren't 100. But the fact that Butters, he's under 100 game, was still 98, fantastic. So no issues there. Like Libba's it's a hard one with Libba. Because it was frustrating because we got Bevoed last week. He's already dropped the sort of 30k break even of 140, which he can potentially do. Like his last 3 scores against Geelong, 124, 122, 123. So even with a break even of 140, he's only gonna they've got him projected 116. But if it's a 120, he's dropping like 9k, like big friggin' deal. The 92 first week's wasn't great, but that'll cycle out soon. The 98 from West Coast, just frustrating because he got managed, but he's probably managed because of the big games coming up. Geelong, Essendon, St Kilda, Fremantle. The more worry is, does he get managed maybe against a Hawthorn or Richmond later on? But I guess we'll cross that bridge when it gets to it. But I'm still pretty confident that he can score well against these teams, especially if the weather's either not great against them or they're very contested matches. We know Lipper just thrives in that. Stats again. Probably the biggest thing is like against the Suns, he was tackling hard. It was a big contested game. He didn't have that many possessions, but he's still the fact that he gets involved and tackles. So, and he even in that game gave away 4 free kicks. So you can see Libba, he's going to have one of these games where he's going to put it together. He's going to have the 30 touches. He's probably going to have 8-9 tackles, and he's going to come out and score 140, 150. And there's nothing worse like a lot of people got burnt this week, and I didn't mention that in defence, like Hayden Young. If Hayden Young comes out and scores 120 again, he's potentially an option to get in, and I know a lot of people have been trading him out, so there'd be nothing worse, I feel like, a little bit with Libba. It's not like he's scoring like 60s, 70s, where I'm like, oh my God, I have to trade this guy out, unlike somebody else who quite a few people own. And if I go here as a trade out option, just so we can have a look at who I'm talking about, and that is Dawson, which I must admit was very high on my radar pre-season. He is struggling big time. So we look at the best averages, Sarong, Green, Rao, Merritt, who's one of the guys who usually starts slow. He's an absolute fire at the moment. Does look a fantastic option, but we'll just continue to look at these trade-out options for a moment. So Adelaide, the big one there is Dawson. Laird and Crouch are the ones doing all the heavy lifting. Dawson, and it's not... The problem is it's not him finding the ball. Like if you have a look at his stats here, he's getting it plenty. The hard thing is break even of 174, which they're saying there's no chance him getting. He's already dropped 60k for you, which is really frustrating. Potentially drops another 50 to 60k. Tough games against Melbourne, Carlton, Essendon potentially coming up. But 27 touches, 26 touches, 26. And I think that's the worry because the fact that he hasn't turned up and he's getting that much ball. Against the Cats, he had 12 tackles as well. Like that's brilliant. The biggest issue is the amount of butchering he is doing with that ball. So something's clearly not right there. Probably he's the one I would be leaning to trading just because, how many weeks can you sort of back him in to not continue to turn over the ball. There's not a lot more I can say about that. It's frustrating if you're an owner. Like he only had the 400 meters gain too. Like that's quite low compared to some of the other players in there. But when you're having 9 turnovers, and it's not just the fact that it's like, for example, Bonner had a record 17 turnovers the other day, but was still getting involved. Had like 1,000 meters gain, but he's got no meters about him, and his turnovers are just awful. So I think he does need to be moved on. And we do need to look at one of these better guys, as we've talked about. One of the guys I really like at the moment is Tuke Miller, just because of the draw. You could potentially Matty Rowell as well. Both of them are averaging great. I think Tuke's the slightly more reliable one, but by going off some of these younger guys this year, it's the wave of the next generation. I have no problems if people want to go Matty Rowell, but he's Tuke, for example, 116, 137, 115, so that's pretty reliable. Giants a little bit tougher this week, but it is Adelaide Hill, so it's a bit different. But then the Hawks, Sydney, who they seem to beat every year, they have a brilliant record against the Swans. West Coast are offering absolutely nothing at the moment. My only worry is, I feel like Tuke's not that old that they need to rest him or anything like that, but are they more likely to give the young Bulls more of a go for those sort of games? Tuke's going to be in and under it for the big Q clash, and then they've got North Melbourne. They've actually got the back-to-back Darwin game, so either Rowell or Tuke, I think, are fantastic options in there and need to be considered. You could have probably Zach Merritt. If you jumped on Steele, he's as reliable as ever, but he just probably doesn't have the highs. He seems to just be smashing out his 120 each week, which is it's fine. It's no problems, unlike the sort of standard, the more the yo-yo scores that some of these other players might get. Like they might go 140 and then maybe throw in a 90 or 100. But yeah, Jack Steele has been pretty reliable. He's only probably getting these sort of 25 possessions each week. I know Abdul's talked a bit about this. The fact that, compared to some of the other players out there, where, they're, getting their 30, 35 touches. He's relying, 27, 29, 26, 25, but he's an absolute tackling machine, doesn't give away free kicks. The thing is, still doesn't kick many goals, but if he has a game where he does probably kick a goal or two, that could actually boost up to about a 140. He's playing a Richmond team with no midfield again this week, so it could be another 120, 130 on the horizon. So I don't mind Steele either if that's the kind of what you want to go. He's that slightly cheaper option if you don't have the money to get it like a Rowell or a Tuke, a Butters, any of those big guys. So that's what we're looking at if you need that premium option in regards to a cash cow or a cheaper break even, or go with a high break even. Jared Lyons is one that we need to monitor in case he was to come in. Still, I think he's one of those guys that we just need to monitor each week. As my doggy wants to bark in the background. We've probably missed the boat if you don't have like Sharp. Carroll did exactly what they were meant to do. They made their 60k, probably going to have another couple good weeks there and make their 110, 120 as I talked about last week. Probably the one for me there disappointed was Wilson. Even Harley Reid in a way, like it probably would have been better to own Carroll and Sharp over those two because they've kind of flattened out. But there's no real other rookie at the moment that, unless you want to side swap one of those guys, just to get their cash generation going, but it's probably not worth it because even Harley Reid at the moment, he still has a negative break even. Actually, no, it's actually still positive now. So it's positive 22, but he's still, even if he comes out and scores a 60, he's still going to make some cash. It's not going to be as good as everybody else, but do I really want to side swap? Like if you have a look at Sharp, for example, or Carroll, like they're much of a muchness, all these guys. What have we got here? So Sharp's going around, so they've got him projected 50s. I feel like he could probably go 60s. He's probably making another 50 to 60k. Is it really that worth it for a trade there? Maybe not, unless you're really desperate. Maybe Harley Reid down to one of them just to get the 60k up if you really needed it. But the unfortunate thing is there's not a lot else on the horizon there of these break evens. So they're more expensive guys. So you've got Lions, Parfitt. I don't know about the Parfitt play at the moment. I'd rather have another look at Elijah Hollands in that role. 116, he looked brilliant, so maybe him. You got William Drew, who's absolutely flying at the moment, and they've got Wines out, but I still probably wouldn't recommend going there. But outside that, there's not a lot else on the horizon right now, so it is a little bit thin in the midfield in regards to rookies. We need a couple other rookies to kind of make a debut soon. Huss rate wasn't really great on debut, got subbed out, so that's probably frustrating for people who were either had him and holding him or waiting for him to come down as a potential option for us. It is a bit sad in the old midfield. Really need a couple rookies to make their debut and start coming in there, so that's a little bit unfortunate, but they're probably the couple of rookies that we do need to focus on are in the forward line. So if we have a look, if we cancel that trade and we go up to the forward line, now this is an area where people are very interested in. I'm lucky because I've already got Buku, but I don't have Dempsey, so he's one of the more interesting guys. If I trade out Mr. Berry, bit annoying that Dempsey's went so well. I'm getting sort of the 45k cash rise out of Berry, where Dempsey looks like he's probably going to make his 110, 120 right now. So from a premium point of view, the obvious one, if you don't already have, like people trying to go for Heaney now, I feel like maybe the horse has bolted too much. He's got a bye coming up. Like, he's averaging great, but yeah, well, brilliant. But is he going to keep it at 139? Like, yeah, he's playing West Coast this week, but then after that it's a bye, and then it probably starts to come down. Flanders is the one to jump on if you don't have him, like me, and that's why I've got the cash to go 5 to Flanders. Again, the draw's not great for him maybe this week, but he'll still get around the ball. But he did score 100 against the Giants last year. But yeah, that draw against Hawthorn, West Coast, North Melbourne coming up. And the thing with the Suns, they do play North Melbourne and West Coast twice, and they even got Richmond again on the run home. So it's like, I feel like Suns players are really important. That's why I don't even want to trade out Berry or Sexton, just because their draw so good and there's potential to get another spike in there. If you wanted kind of more of a mid-price option, Max King against the beaten-up Tigers has started very well. It's a bit in the same vein of Hogan and Mackay. If you want to go there, break even of -29. They've got him projected 110. It's not out of the question. Like, he's done a 95 and 100 against the Tigers before, and the back line's going to be, as I said, pretty weakened. The Giants will be a tougher task the week after, and some of that draw, but then they do have a North Melbourne and Hawthorn as they get around that bye period, and then just before their bye, West Coast. So the draw is quite friendly. From a St Kilda point of view, they've got him projected to make sort of 100k in the next couple of weeks. If he even goes more than that, you know, if he has one of those 130, 140 games, he's never really had the massive, like, score compared to a couple of those other forwards, like, you know, a Hogan. Not saying that, but we know he's had a lot of injury concerns, so maybe he just hasn't had the opportunity to do it. But his highest there is a 124. So does he have really the ceiling that we kind of need? But yeah, we know they're going to feed him, and if the Saints have a day out, like, King could get on it. So he might be the next one of these key forwards that, yeah, if they get on a few. Norwood's of skinnier ground, so does that make it easier for Richmond to defend, or it just means St Kilda's ball movement means they could just feed him? If he kicks, what's he kicked in the first couple games here? Goals 2 and 3, and he kicked 2, 4, and 3 straight. Like, if King gets hold of a game where he kicks 5 or 6, it could be a massive score, and that might be the worry. So that's maybe a left field option, a bit maybe for those who like miss Tom Powell. So just a little bit of food for thought there. And then in regards to cash cows, the big one is Sam Darcy that people are looking at. Now, a little bit of word for warning regards Darcy. Didn't have the greatest game this week. Probably recovered in his match for that last quarter, like up till 3/4 time. I actually thought he might be the one that gets subbed out, but I thought that would nearly be stupid of the Dogs, because may as well just get him game time and get rid of let Bonter and English have the last quarter off. Unfortunately, again, it was liver. But he managed to get up to a 54, which was all right. Had about half the stat line of what English did. So, yeah, had 11 disposals, you know, kicked a goal, 11 hit-outs, which I think, yeah, about half of what English, which was probably reflected around what they, like, I think English scored, 60 points more or something like that, 70 points more. So it's pretty reflective of that. So if he's only going to get probably that, like, a third of the opportunity in the ruck or playing forward, they've got him projected on going 40s the next couple of weeks, and he can still sort of make 75, 80k. So if he was to have a decent game against the Cats, you know, that could potentially, if it was a 60 or another 80, yeah, he could make 70, 80k in 1 week for us. So it's somebody I am considering. The issue is Rory Lobb absolutely dominated the VFL this week. Now, do they want to keep getting games in the young fella, or does Bevo want to bring back Lobb, the more experienced guy? We'll have to wait and see, but 5 goals from Lobb and 20 hit-outs. It's an interesting situation there for the Bulldogs match committee this week. Outside of that, like, Dempsey has the whole horse bolted. Like, they've got him projected scoring over 100 this week. I don't see that happening. Like his best, like, he had an 80. I don't think he's ever had 100, so it's funny that they've got him projected so high. First week he played forward pocket, next week he plays half forward, and then this week he plays wing. So go figure what they're planning to do with him on a week-to-week basis. But yeah, they're saying 100. I'm really thinking projection. Even if we're saying 80, yeah, he's still probably going to make 40k this week. But then, yeah, can he probably get another 100k? I don't think it's probably going to be as much, but that's based on, if he was to get 100, yeah, he probably gets another 100k. If it comes back to, say, a 70 this week, he's probably making maybe 70k. It's not the worst option, especially they do have North Melbourne coming up. Like if he had a good game there. There is a little bit of food for thought, but I feel like maybe it's a bit of a waste of trade just going him to Berry to sort of him to correct that. Some people are looking at my man Buku, and I don't mind that so much. Yes, you've missed out on the 60k. Probably the good thing about Buku is he is going to get that dual position, which will help your back line. So I can understand he is getting better and better as each week goes on. Had the 50, then the 60, then the 82 was against West Coast. But yeah, projected scores there sort of 50, 60. You're not more bringing him in for the cash, even though he probably could still make him sort of 70, 80k, but just to give you more backline cover. So I can understand why people are considering that. So I've got no kind of issue with that one, but yeah, it's just a little bit sad with a couple of these options here with the just because players aren't, we don't really have too many other rookies on the horizon at the moment. We need a couple of players to, again, make a debut. So maybe it is like we need to look at a couple of these mid-price options just to sort of get us through. That's where like banking cash last week was really important. Or, yeah, I can see, as we said, moving your sort of your wines and all these mid-prices who aren't working. But, I've heard some people even considering just not trading at all, which is not a bad idea if you don't need to. If you've already got most players in there, no problems holding if you're not really covering any injuries as well. So for me, again, it'll be just depending on teams. But at the moment, the one trade I really wanted to do was just Fife into Flanders. Because I was cashed up and I knew I could do that. Need to wait and see what happens with Darcy, and I need to see what happens with Richmond. So potentially it's, I could downgrade maybe Wilson to Darcy and just move somebody into the midfield again. Even maybe Harley Reid down. Probably in a perfect world keep Reid. Even maybe Harley Reid and somebody else, just so I can keep Fife for another week. It's not out of the question for me, but I'll do that one trade because I know that's unless something massively happens in the next 2 days, I don't see it changing too much. As I said, maybe I just get the extra cash and make it Harley Reid instead of Fife and just hold Fife for another week and see kind of what happens there. But I kind of really like the fact that forward line is, Heaney, Jackson, Flanders, Powell, and realistically 2 rookies is fine because there's enough question marks about that forward line anyway. The most sort of traded in and out, actually that's the players that I'll have, but let's have a look at the list anyway. If I just go Flanders, and I'll finish off with a little bit of captain and vice captain talks in a moment. But if Supercoach wants to play kind to me, let's have a look at the most traded in and out options anyway. What have we got here? And it's always good radio or podcasting when Supercoach doesn't want to play fair. Here we go. All coaches. And we've got the most traded out players this week. So we want, apologies here, guys. Things are trying to load up. Round change is what we want. All right, so most change this week. Sam Darcy's been traded in by 12.5%. Then it's just Tom Powell, Dempsey, Heaney. So you can sort of see by that, it's not a huge amount of trades happening. Probably the only one really is Sam Darcy, with a few people jumping on Powell a little bit late. So, and then in regards to traded out, we've got Billings. Oh yeah, sorry, and I apologise because I don't have Billings or Jordan. Hadn't really thought too much about that, but yeah, Billings again being subbed out is an issue, and I apologise this taking so long to actually mention him. He was a little bit far from mine, but yeah, he's made the 62k. Unfortunately, now break even of 64. Like you can easily hold him because you could easily sort of reset that. They are playing the Crows. They do have the Tigers coming up soon, but you're not going to really be making a lot of cash over the next couple of weeks. I don't think you're going to be losing cash, so you could potentially just hold him there. But yeah, Billings down to Darcy seems to be a way people are resetting their cash. Zach Fisher's another one. James Jordan. I'd be holding Jordan if you can. They're playing West Coast. Like worst case scenario, he just doesn't drop cash. But yeah, Fisher again. He's another one that's in that boat. But again, it's a break even of 47. It's not terrible. So you can definitely hold him and just kind of see what happens. It's only if you're trying to get up to sort of Flanders or if you need that extra defender but I don't really think any of these guys really been moved on. Again, Fife's sort of in that category there, like 3%. I'm in that category just because I want to turn him into Flanders. But if I can sort of do it in another way, but his break even's 45. Like, I still think he probably gets it. If he gets if he gets to 65, he's going up 9k, 10k. Do they use him a little bit more in the midfield this week because they are playing the Blues? They've got a couple of big games to win. West Coast after that, that sort of game he gets subbed out. So I could see him potentially, needing to play more midfield time, going 80-80 and resetting that cash gen and making, maybe it's an extra 20-30k there. So that's not out of the question too. So there are a few options there, but yeah, don't maybe go too insane with trying to trade some of these players out this week. Like, we need the warm bodies at the moment too. We'll just kind of wait and see what happens. In regards to captaincy and vice captaincy options, this is week where we do not have the bye players, so this is where some of these guys who aren't playing come in handy. One that probably does help me, like Livingston, is playing on a Saturday, so that is a little bit more frustrating because of how early he's playing. That's part of me why I want to keep Gipkus, just because if he's on field there, and then I can sort of loophole. It won't be Howe, but it might have to be somebody else there. But if I can have Gipkus there, that means I can pretty well loophole any player I want. But yeah, you've got to be mindful of who's playing when. So Maxi Gawn is playing Thursday night, so he's a potential vice captain up against Riley O. Some people have been talking to me about Lockie Neal, not a bad option to bring in. I know he's playing North Melbourne, so if you were bringing in, you could vice captain him. Butters against the Bombers, bounce back. That's not a bad one on the Friday either. West Coast Sydney, it's really hard to ignore Heaney, so if you've got the option to, after the West Coast Sydney game, as a loophole person, because it's really hard if you do have the West Coast guys this week. But yeah, if you could vice captain Heaney, he just looks on an absolute fire. Sarong against the Blues, I feel like it's probably another 120, so I'm sort of leaving that. But yeah, perfect world. Heaney into our man Tommy Green. Tommy Green playing against the Suns, I feel like, it might be a case for Rowell and him sort of go head-to-head, bit like Libba and Green. Libba and Rowell went head-to-head a couple of weeks ago, and they both just, do their own thing. So, I don't mind that either. Or if you've got one of the Saints guys, like if you've got Jack Steele, he might be a pretty reliable backup captain this week too. So yeah, hopefully that covers a lot of the things you guys are thinking about. I know, as I said, I had quite a few questions about regarding that, but like overall, outside of needing that one extra defender, which I'll have to think about because I'm obviously not going to take a donut in there, but I'm pretty comfortable with things sitting. The two rucks at the moment, we'll revisit that next week when Sydney and Collingwood have the bye. The forward line, it's a lot of people either have like a Mackay or a Powell there at F4 at the moment, so I think that's pretty standard. The midfield, most people are going just 5 deep there with the 3 decent rookies on field. There's enough to sort of rotate there, and then just the defenders. I've seen probably only one defence where it's like 4 deep, but most people sort of have 3 or even down to 2, and then but probably like I could probably get away with nearly trading Libba and just putting an extra guy in there and maybe playing one of these extra rookies. I'd probably feel a bit more comfortable with it. What would end up happening is I'd have to maybe bring Fife back, move Harley Reid and put Fife in the midfield just for now, and then maybe rotate one of these Suns players. But yeah, overall, like I'm pretty happy with the team, but we'll just sort of see how it goes with a best 22 situation. Feel free to keep hitting us up, tell us what you're doing, and we will talk soon. Happy super coaching and happy gather round, guys.